Welcome to Ch.1, the Humanities expert. Today we're officially kicking off the Ch.2 Sociology series, and this is part 1 of the entire series. In this video I'll be discussing Class 11 Humanities Sociology Chapter 1, which is Sociology and Society. But before we get into that, we need to have an introduction or a brief about what sociology really is. So we'll start with a relatively unrelated note. We're looking at the labor force participation in India. So the percentage of male and female that work in India comprises the labor force participation. So according to 2021 stats, 75.79% of the workforce in India is comprised with males and 21.2% is comprised with females. Now let's look at the literacy rate. According to 2021 stats, 84.4% of males that are above the age of 7 can read and write in a language, and 71.5% of females above the age of 7 can read and write in a language. Will this vary in rural areas? Definitely. As you can see, the literacy rate in rural areas is slightly lower, 81% for males and 65% among females. What does this mean? This shows that more men are educated and men comprise majority of the workforce. So, in other words, men are more dominant in India. But why? What's the reason behind this? Sociology has the answer. But before we understand sociology, we have to have an in-depth, comprehensive understanding of what society is. Society is everyone around us, and we're always hearing people say the society is corrupted, or the society is not developing. What is society? Society is defined as the aggregate of people living together and sharing the same territory and culture. So, when we live together in our household, we're also living in society, which is our family. Everyone in our apartment comprises a small society. The entire city forms a society, and the entire nation also forms a society. These societies can be different from each other, and they could also be based on different lines, or it can be demarcated on the basis of religion, caste, tribe, creed, or whatever. So societies are also based on culture. Those who share the same practices and traditions form a society. And also those who live together in the same territory also form a society. Societies can vary from micro to macro. So essentially, the micro society is the family that we live together with. And the macro society, or the larger society, is the entire country as a whole. And even the entire globe, the entire world as a whole can be considered as a society. Because we have some common practices, some common traditions, some socially acceptable gestures and notions that perceive us to all be in the same society. For example, we all live in a family and we share commonness. Everyone in a single apartment shares some common identity. Everyone in a city or state share common identity. And the entire nation as a whole also shares some commonalities. And finally, the world shares a commonality too, which is that we're all humans. So, an individual can definitely not function without society. And every decision or action that an individual takes is determined based on the society. So, what is the importance of society in affecting the individual? Everything we do is a result of the society that we live in. For example, we study well for a good job, because in this society that we live in, only people that have a good job and gain a significant salary are respected and is socially acceptable, because poor people are disliked because they consider them to not have a job, they consider them to not be hardworking. So we've created a society that's wholly based on money, and a society that's divided into rich and poor. So that's why we study well. We want a good job. We want money to gain respect in society. Why do we take a bath every day? We take a bath to stay clean and maintain a good smell, because in our society, hygiene is important, and it's important to also retain a good smell. And also there's some globally accepted gestures, such as waving, which means hello. Now you may be thinking I'm crazy because I'm just pointing out these common things and deciding that society causes us to do all of this. But that's what sociology is all about. Sociology is about finding the strange in the common and the general in the particular. Everyone takes a bath, and we don't even give a second thought about why we do it. Maybe in some societies, in various other planets, which we're not aware of, maybe they don't take a bath, because in those societies, smelling bad or not being hygienic doesn't really matter. In those societies, it's socially acceptable to go outside smelling bad. And also, in some societies, maybe money isn't a major concern. Maybe people are focused on kindness and sharing their resources. In fact, this can be seen in a communist government, so that's a different society on its own. So in this society that we're living in, mainly in India, we have to study for a good job, and more specifically, we have to study these certain subjects, such as math or science, because everyone wants to become a doctor or an engineer, because only these subjects have value in our society. The stream that we choose is determined by what society finds acceptable and deems as respected or correct. Societies can define things that are correct, even though morally they may not be incorrect. For example, historically women have been mistreated because societies in the 1900s or even 1800s perceived that women don't deserve equal rights. But in the 21st century, that's completely different. We're giving polar opposite treatment to women. We're treating them as equals, because everyone has equal rights as long as they're human. So that means society doesn't exactly deem what's morally correct, but what's societally correct is what most people follow. If you're watching this video, then you're most likely in the humanities stream. And in Indian society, humanities stream is not the most popular. People go towards math, science, or commerce. So if you've chosen this stream, you've defied the norms of society, which is definitely not a bad thing, or it's not illegal, but it means you've chosen your own perspective and your own path. Our likes and dislikes are also determined by society. You may be thinking that your personality is completely individual. It can't be influenced by anyone else, but this is also not true. For example, if you like a certain sports team, it can be attributed to your location, your family, and your culture. So now let's look at what relevant society is. We've already determined that an individual is part of multiple societies. But what does this mean? For example, we live in a family, and that's a society. We belong to a religion, and that's another society. We belong to a caste, and that's another society. We go to a certain school, and that forms a society. We belong to a country. Our nationality belongs to a country. So we're part of multiple societies. And also, societies are neither perfect nor equal. There's no utopian society where everything is the way it's supposed to be. And often in societies, people are mistreated on account of certain principles. For example, in Indian societies, in the past, we erected a caste system where the Dalits or the scheduled castes are mistreated on account of their occupation. So these atrocities continue to this day. And although we adopted a democratic society, these instances of segregation and mistreatment still take place, and marginalization, because the society hasn't changed yet. We still follow these historic principles and norms. So now let's get into the actual study of sociology, which is the study of society and human behavior. We know what society is, and we've also had a brief insight on what human behavior is. How is sociology different from other branches of social sciences, such as psychology or history? Well, sociology is systematic. It's a systematic study of the society as an interconnected whole, whereas psychology is primarily focused on the study of the individual. Also, sociology highlights the power of the perspective, because society is based on perspective. We perceive that math and science are more important than humanities. We perceive that men have higher abilities than women. These are all our perceptions, our perspective, and they're always subject to changes. So that's why sociology studies what frames these perspectives. For example, why do we think that math and science are more important? Why do we think that men are more powerful and more capable than men? Why do we think that Dalits don't deserve equal treatment as other castes? These are all important questions that can define human humans as a whole. So sociology is very important in studying the history of humans, and it gives an insight on how we evolved and why do we even live together. So when you start reading about sociology, you start questioning what's around you. Why do we live like this? Who decided that a 3-bedroom house indicates higher wealth than a 2-bedroom house? Who decided that an iPhone indicates wealth over an Android phone? These are all human perceptions. We think that a person driving a car is richer than a person driving a bike. And these are all also affected by economics. But in reality, economics is also impacted by society. For example, jobs are created based on the needs of the economy. And needs of the economy are determined by the policies framed by the government. But the government frames policies that are approved in a majority by the public because we live in a democratic society. So majority represents a perspective in society. And this perspective is framed by the subject of sociology. We're studying society and humans as an interconnected whole. Because humans live together. We've been living together since our existence. So the most important aspect of sociology is observing the general in particular and observing the strange in common. So to understand the general in particular, for example, somebody that likes the Hyderabad Sunrisers as a cricket team, they might find this particular to them. It's part of their individuality. But no, there's a general reason for why they like the Sunrisers. It could be because of their location, their family, their culture, their caste. It could be on account of various reasons. We also have to observe the strange in the common. For example, why do we wave at people to indicate hello? Why has this globally been accepted as a gesture to represent hello? This is common, but it's also strange. Why do people have to take a bath every day? Why did humans and society perceive that it's socially acceptable to smell good and socially unacceptable to smell bad? So that's what sociology is all about, observing the general in particular and observing the strange in common. Can societies change? Of course. The answer to this is yes. Societies are always evolving on account of various factors, the environment, technology, the government, etc. For example, in 1951, the literacy rate was 21.16% among males and 9% among females. This is dismal compared to what the numbers that we have today. And so what does this change in literacy rate represent over the past 70 years? It means that society has understood the importance of education. Society has perceived that education is an important tool and it's a resource that can be used to transform lives. In the past, agriculture was deemed as an important tool, and now it's changed to education. So in the future, maybe technology, AI, ML, maybe these will shape society. So that's how societies change over time. They're always changing. We're living in a digital internet era right now, and societies have already changed significantly. So sociology tries to understand these changes in society as well. So now we conclude this video. Sociology is a deep, intense subject, and it involves several other terms and keywords. But the purpose of this video is to introduce you to the purpose of sociology. And as long as you understand this, I think you're guaranteed to understand the rest of your textbook and the rest of the lessons, because this is the fundamentals of sociology. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next one, this is Nisha signing off. Peace.